Hello internet friends, my name is Catherine and I'm the human behind Creation Discouture, and today we have another episode of Color Wheel Monday, and in this episode we're starting to play with the Caribbean Blue. So we're finally sort of out of the red. In this first episode with the blue, we're going to be adding red. So we're going to be working through the color wheel, but instead of going from red to red orange like we have on my color wheel, we're starting with the primary colors. So we're doing the triangle. So we've already done the red, and now we're going to be working on the blue. In today's episode, we're adding red, and we'll be also able to do a little comparison at the end of the episode when we're revealing the final color of the blue adding red into the thing. So as always, I will have in the description box below all tools used in this episode. We're using Nitpick fingering straw weight, meaning they're 10 grams mini skins with Dharma Trading Co. acid dyes. So let's get into this. It's another Color Wheel Monday, and so I'm very happy to say we've officially finished red as the primary color we were working with. And today we're going to be starting with a blue. So we're going to be doing the same way that we did with the red. So we will be working our way through the adding colors. So for this one, today we're not totally finish with red because we're going to be starting with adding fire engine red. So just for a reminder, we'll be working with Caribbean Blue as our primer blue, fire engine red as the red, and with the other colors we're going to be working with blazing orange, brilliant yellow, electric violet, and Kelly green when we're there. So for what we're going to be working, I know that we could technically follow with the red orange, but I want to create our blue first. So we're actually working the three primary colors before starting to work with the other colors, like the green here, and like our orange and our violet, which would be like in between all those colors. So this is the way we're going to be carrying on. So we're going to be starting by doing our 1% stock solution for each. So in this case, we're going to be doing actual stock solution and not based off the weight of good just quite yet. So we're going to be doing Caribbean Blue in fire engine. So we're going to be starting with the Caribbean Blue. Please note that while we're manipulating the dry powders, we need to wear a mask, a respirator, to avoid breathing the dry powder. So it's musk time, and I will sound muffled if I do speak, so please bear with me. Because you only have one pair of lungs. So for the Caribbean Blue, I will do more of it because I need more of it for later videos. So I'm just going to be batching the stock solution. So I'm going to do 3 grams of dry powder for 300 milliliters. Oh, so this is blue, so I need to wear gloves for this because this is going to stain so badly. So we're going to be wearing gloves because I know I will stain for sure. Okay, so we have our 3 grams. Just move this on the side. We're going to add a tiny bit of water. Blue is a very potent color in general, and Caribbean Blue can be intense. So now I can go up to my 300 milliliter line. Oops. And I'm already making mess. And this is why I'm wearing gloves, because I don't want to look like a Smurf. I don't have anything against Smurf, but I just don't want to look like one. And now we're going to be doing the fire engine red. For this one, we're just going to do 1 gram. Oops. We're just going to do 1 gram because I don't need that much of it compared to the blue, which will be the star for the next few episodes of Color Wheel Monday. Okay. And we're going to be doing the same thing. We're just going to add a little bit at first, try to dissolve all of it. And now that we don't have the dry powder out, I'm going to be removing my mask because now I can breathe without fear of breathing the dry powders. We only have one pair of lungs, so please be very careful with it. So let's add more water. So if you're worried about clumps, you can always pass it through. Is this stiff? You can always pass it through. What's the name of this thing? I will look it up at some point. But you can always pass your stock solution through this into another container if you're worried that you're going to have clumps in here. Because what I've noticed is that some dry powders sometimes are more clumpy than others. They like to stick together. So this is definitely something that you could do to make sure that this doesn't happen. So now what we're going to do, we're going to grab the mason jar so we'll be able to fill them up, and then we will, after that, make our mixes. So I will grab my mason jars. So if you want to laugh with me or at me, I don't know, I realized that I made a mistake when I was doing my 1% stock solution of Fire Engine Red. I pour 300 milliliters instead of 100 milliliters into the container, so that would have, let's just say, that would have made our result weird. It would not have been accurate. Let's just say like that. So what we are going to do is we're going to do like we did with the red. We're going to be putting 10 milliliters in each of the mason jars because our we are using 10-gram mini skeins. They are the fingering straw for fingering weight from Knitpick. I will have an affiliated link in the description box below if you're interested to purchase some. So since there's 10 gram and we want to have 1% depth of shade for the blue, we're going to add 10 milliliter, and for the red we're going to be adding by increment. So we're going to go with the 0.05% depth of shade up to a 1% depth of shade, so that way we can see how adding a little bit and a lot more of the color will affect the final result for the color. So we're going to start doing that. So I'm going to start by adding the Carribean Blue from Dharma Trading Co. I don't have an affiliated link, but I will have the link in the description box below. So that way you can go and see their website, because they do a whole lot of things other than just acid dyes. They have tie-dye kits, they have a whole lot of fiber reactive dye as well. You can even purchase yarn on their website. I've never personally purchased from them, but if you're just trying it out, this is definitely something that you could look into. Let me know if you would like me to try out their yarn to see. Well, they're probably worth it, but I just never worked with it, so I don't know exactly what they have. So you would have just to let me know if it's something you would be interested in me looking into. Okay, so we have our 10 milliliter of the Caribbean Blue in each. So now we're going to be adding the fire engine red. Just making sure to mix it up. So even though we've just made the stock solution, I always want to try out to like how can I say? I always try to clean, like make sure that there's no clump or anything. So here we have our 0.05 milliliter. Now we're going to be doing the 1 milliliter of fire engine red. Here's one. Now we're doing 2.5 in this one. And I know that they will most likely all be different shades of blue because, like we've mentioned many times, blue is very potent. And this is just how it is. It's the same thing with black. If you put some, like a lot of black or a little black, the black will overpower everything. So you really need to understand how much it is potent so you can dye your yarn accordingly. So 5 milliliters. Now we're doing the 7.5. 7.5 milliliter of fire engine red. Now we're going to be adding 10 so that we can create our 1% depth of shade. Ouch. Come on. Okay, and 10 milliliter. There we go. So we're going to clean this up. But also we are going to stir because you can see that there's barely, I don't know if you can see it actually. Well, yes, you can see that there's barely any variation. Especially in the first ones, what it's going to do is just like create a more warm blue most of the time. We might get purple, but it will most likely be more of a midnight blue than a purple or a violet. Okay, so this is good. We are now going to grab the mini skeins so we can add them in here. And like I said, we will barely see a difference in the color. It's still very Caribbean blue, but it's slightly warmer. We can see a color shift here. It seems a little more on the blue sky than Caribbean blue. But yeah, still not a whole difference. Oh, yeah. It's crazy how potent Caribbean blue is. And this is a good exercise, I feel, in potency when it comes to dyeing, because it really shows off how much one color can just decide that it's the king of the hill. And now we're going into more of a navy feeling. There's almost like a gray feel to it. But it's definitely more on a navy. Yeah, more navy than anything else. Yeah, potency, my friends. Ah, no. I am making a huge mess. Oh gosh. Okay, so we're going to put this in the double boiler, and well, I will see you. Okay, so we're going to be adding the jars. Okay, please note that I haven't added yet any citric acid because I want the dye to be able to like absorb and strike the yarn slower. And if I was to add the citric acid now, it would start to strike now, which is not what I want. Okay, so I'm going to be turning on the heat, and it will take a longer time for the water to reach the correct temperatures. So ideally, we want the temperature to be like between 85 Celsius to 95 Celsius to be able to strike the yarn properly without being it too hot where it would like compromise the integrity of the yarn. So I'm going to be waiting for at least 15 minutes before adding the citric acid. And for the citric acid, you don't need a whole lot. You'll need like not even a full teaspoon because it's only 10 grams mini skeins. So we will see each other in a little bit. Okay, so it's been about 15 minutes. I'm just going to be adding my citric acid now. We don't need a whole lot since we only have 10-gram mini skeins. Oh, I'm making a mess. Oh no, ouch. So I'm like, I guess it would be like a quarter of a teaspoon that I'm putting in right now. And I'm very happy with the coverage so far. And that's why I wait before adding any citric acid when I'm doing a tonal. Unless you would want to glaze with your colors, in which case you would want to add your citric acid rather quickly to create that porous visual. Um, but we don't want to glaze, we want to have an even tonal. So, oh man. Yeah. It's very interesting how this color is changing, how like the red is creating this almost midnight blue, dark navy color. It's very interesting. I love it. Ow. Okay, so we're not quite at the right temperature yet. We're starting to get there, but once we reach between 85 Celsius to 95 Celsius, we will put the timer for 30 minutes, and we're going to let it cook for 30 minutes. So, see you in a bit. Okay, so it's been about half an hour. So we still have a tiny bit of blue in the water, which I'm not super worried about it because it's blue. And it takes a little longer to fully absorb into the yarn and strike, and it's very like it's a tiny tint. So what we can do is actually just turn it off because the residual heat will make it that it will slowly finish to strike the yarn, and we'll have a clear vat at the end. So I'm just turning it off. We're going to let it rest and completely cool off before washing it. So, see you in a bit. Okay, so we are expecting some form of bleeding because we are using Caribbean Blue. So some blues from Dharma, I never have any issue when it comes down to bleeding. However, I've always had issues with Caribbean Blue bleeding. So I don't know if it's just a me because no matter what the pH level I have in my thing, no matter how long I used, I've cooked the yarn for, I will always have bleeding. So I guess that past 0.5% depth of shade, Caribbean Blue just have a tendency to bleed because that's what happens every time I use it with a higher depth of shades of 0.5%. I will show you the mason jar after I've washed the yarn, so you'll be able to see that there is a little tint to the water. It's nothing too crazy as long as you expect it and you know that you'll be working a little bit longer to make sure that the excess dyes have been like removed from your yarn. You should be fine, in my opinion. Sometimes, like so far, haven't had any issues with the color transferring to the fingers when knitting or crocheting. So I would say it's just an issue when it comes down to washing your finished object. So this is definitely something that you need to keep in mind. Maybe leave a little note in your notebook about when you're dyeing that the color might bleed. So, and if you're selling your yarn, maybe just like have a little PSA on your listing saying, hey, the color might be bleeding, just so people are prepared. So if they're using it with other colors, they can either use a color catcher so that way the colors don't mix too much together, stuff like that. So those are things that you need to keep in mind when it comes down to dyeing with Caribbean Blue. So this is my personal experience with Caribbean Blue from Dharma Trading Co. You can check with other dyers if they use this color and see if they have the same issue with that specific color. And since Caribbean Blue is part of the little starter kit that you can purchase from Dharma Trading Co. website, that's something that you would want to know, since it's one of the primary colors that they include in their starter kit. So we're going to let it dry overnight now. And you can see like it's very faint tint in the jars. And here's the final result for adding the red into the Caribbean Blue. And as you can see, so this is the color, the 1% depth of shade of Caribbean Blue. You can see that there's a very tiny difference with when we just added the 0.5 milliliter of the Fire Engine Red. And this is very interesting to see how, and having the Caribbean Blue as the main color in this made it that we didn't get purple per se. It's more like a midnight blue that we've got, or even for this one, I would say almost a dark navy. It buys away. So this is very interesting to see. So we would need to play with the concentration. So way the concentration of the pink, well, of the red and blue, to see when we could get a purple and what kind of purple. And here I will show you the difference from when we did the red and adding Caribbean Blue. You can see that we've got the same color for when we have a 1% depth of shade for both colors. And this one is kind of similar, but this one is more on the purple side rather than on the midnight blue. So having the blue as your main color when you're mixing your colors will make it that Zoe that you will still have a blue. It's just that it's going to be a deeper shade of blue if you're adding red. So this is my understanding of what's happening with adding red to your blue, which is good, because if you still want to have a blue but you want different shades of blue, you can play with your reds and your black, which we'll be doing in a few weeks. So this is an interesting turn of event. So consider liking, sharing, and subscribing, and I will see you in the next one very soon. Bye.